This is KGW News at noon.
It's upsetting to me, frankly, that Legacy announced the closure of this birthing center in January and didn't even apply for the waiver until March.
Lawmakers are speaking out after Legacy Health announced it still plans to close its family birthing center in Gresham, even though the state hasn't okayed it. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Brenda Braxton. The Mount Hood Medical Center is set to close tomorrow. KGW's Alma McCarty has more on the controversy and what's at stake.
Back in January, Legacy Health announced Mount Hood Medical Center's family birth center would close March 17th, pending approval from the state.
That's going to have a huge impact, a very negative impact.
Since then, community members and elected officials alike passionately protested the potential closure. However, with that March 17th date fast approaching, OHA says its approval is still pending. In fact, OHA says it didn't receive a request for a waiver until March 6th, after they sent a letter to Legacy Health reminding them one must be granted. The state also pointed out the potential consequences should Legacy close the birth center without a waiver.
It's upsetting to me, frankly, that Legacy announced the closure of this birthing center in January and didn't even apply for the waiver until March. That indicates to me that they were really not thinking through the ramifications of this closure on the community.
This week, Representative Zach Hudson, whose district covers Troutdale, Fairview, and Gresham, called on OHA to deny the waiver request.
They would need to show that they can that the health impacts of on the community are able to be met in some other way, and I don't find that to be true.
Wednesday night, Legacy Health responded to KGW's request for additional comment. The hospital system stating Legacy did not plan to request approval to close the family birth center and had instead hoped to change its care model. But they said an unanticipated number of staff departures led to their decision to apply for the waiver. Legacy Health says they decided to close the Mount Hood Family Birth Center due to low volume of births coupled with a high-cost care model that required round-the-clock staffing. Alma McCarty, KGW News.
If Legacy closes without following the proper procedure, it could lose its license. Legacy says after tomorrow, pregnant people who come to Gresham will be able to see a provider, but then they will be transferred to Randall Children's Hospital for further care. Now to Salem, where House lawmakers passed a $200 million package to address homelessness. It now heads on to the Senate. Last week, Governor Tina Kotek pushed for this. The money will take on homelessness statewide. It'll help renters facing eviction, support homeless youth, and ramp up production of affordable housing. Recent estimates show Oregon is short about 140,000 affordable housing units. The governor's goal is to build 36,000 a year. Another bill in the legislature encourages restaurants and grocery stores to embrace reusable containers. Senate Bill 545 passed with bipartisan support. It would create new rules allowing restaurants to fill containers that customers bring in. It also encourages reusable food containers in grocery stores. The bill is trying to close what's known as Oregon's plastic recovery gap. The state's goal is to recycle 25% of the waste in its landfills, but right now that number is only 14%. The House still needs to pass this bill before it becomes law. Overseas today, developing news in Paris. There are mass protests after President Emmanuel Macron pushed through a bill raising the national retirement age. That bill is widely unpopular, and he pushed it through without a vote of the National Assembly. So it raises the retirement age to 64 before somebody can get public pension benefits. Right now, the age is 62. Citizens are in the streets. They're carrying flags and signs, starting fires. They are expressing their outrage, but government officials say the change is necessary to make sure the pension system doesn't collapse. All right, let's head back to the Weather Center. The work week, Rod, is winding down with sunshine.
Yeah, this is gorgeous. All of our sky cams are worth taking a look at. So here's a quick view at the coast, our Cannon Beach Live. Notice the blue Pacific waters thanks to all that sunshine. And we're at 50. We think the coast at least gets up to around 55, 56 in most spots this afternoon. Here's a Stoller Family Vineyards Estate down in Dayton. Beautiful blue skies as well. And downtown Portland, we've had a little bit of wispy high cloudiness here and there. Can't really see much of it from this vantage point. Winds are light out of PDX. We thought the temperature would be 50, 51 at noon. We're right there. So we're on track to be upper 50s to maybe hitting 60 in parts of the valley this afternoon. I do want to point out the one player we have. East winds started to blow a few hours ago out of Troutdale. I mean, nothing big. Sustained winds right now, 16 miles per hour. But the air temperatures in the gorge are slightly cooler, so that will be a bit of a cooling influence perhaps in parts of Clark, eastern Clark, and East Multnomah County. But the bigger story, the sun and the warming. We're going to leave today's high at 58 for Portland, but we do expect some areas to get up to 60. We'll be 52 at 8 o'clock. Tomorrow, another run for 60. Saturday, another run for 60. And that 7 days coming up, Brenda.
Rob, thank you. This noon, Governor Kotek is weighing in on a controversy at Churchill High School in Eugene. It surrounds a health class assignment where students were asked to share a sexual fantasy. This is part of a human sexuality class using a curriculum called OWL. That's short for Our Whole Lives. It was developed by the Unitarian Universalist Association and the United Church of Christ. The district adopted it 7 years ago. In an email to parents, the principal says the Oregon Department of Education endorsed the curriculum, but the Oregonian reports OED denies that. Meanwhile, Kotek's office released a statement saying the governor is appalled and thinks these assignments are woefully inappropriate and unacceptable. They do not reflect educational best practices or Oregon's standards. Now, we also heard from a parent who wanted to remain anonymous but says he's upset.
I'm not an expert on Our Whole Life. I know what I can find on the internet. I know what I've read from the Oregon Department of Education. I see nowhere where it should be talking about your sexual fantasies. I'm going to ask the superintendent to make some really hard decisions here about the curriculum or the individual who's teaching the wrong curriculum.
Well, the school superintendent said the district is now looking for a new curriculum to replace OWL. Time magazine just naming the Willamette Valley one of the 50 greatest places in the entire world. Time called the Willamette Valley the new Napa. It raved about the variety and quality of the wines and the restaurants here. Time also gave a special shout out to the Tributary Hotel in McMinnville for the way it prepares Pacific rockfish. The list features 50 locations in no particular order, including the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt and Kyoto, Japan.